Hello, and welcome to my One Brilliant Scene. One Brilliant Scene is an idea from Shobogan Who. It's sort of the sequel to one fantastic scene that he did to celebrate the return of Christopher Eccleston's Ninth Doctor in 2020. This time is a celebration of the recent ending of Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor, who recently finished her era last month in The Power of the Doctor. Like some of us, I've been all over the place with the recent era of Who, from thinking Series 11 was a great revamp of the show to only liking part of Flux and the specials. So if I had those general, maybe not so positive feelings for this era, then why did I want to take part of this? Well, it's because I think, as the title says, there are still some brilliant scenes in this era which need to be reminded to people who probably forgot or chose to miss. Such as my choice. I've entitled The Doctor's Leap from 13th's debut story, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, written by Chris Chibnall and directed by Jamie Childs. Now, before we get into the scene, we have to talk about post-regeneration stories. Most of them since Power of the Daleks have been normal adventures of the added inclusion of a new Doctor, such as Robots, The Twin Dilemma, and The Time of the Rani. Adventures where the characters have to rely on themselves more than the Doctor because they're incapacitated, such as The Christmas Invasion and Deep Breath, and the adventures where the Doctor has the trouble of needing a moment to rest but can't be provided with one, like the 11th Hour and this story. So far we've established that one of the main factors of the story is that the Doctor needs to be on top form, but they can't because they need to take a rest, and the adventure doesn't provide one. So I think you can tell why I chose the scene I chose, which is in the full brim of the third act of the story, as we close into the one of the characters from earlier on in the episode, Carl, being pursued by the monster of the story, Tim Shaw, stuck on a crane with no way out. This is where the Doctor and the fam begin their plan. The Doctor gives Ryan and Yaz the keys to the crane, and Grace and Graham try to stop an electrical creature taking down the other crane. Yaz and Ryan move some cranes, which show off the amazing high-level shots from the director Jamie Childs, who I think, without his solid camera work, would have made the scene less entertaining. But then we have the crane stopping, and now, instead of having to hop across, Carl has to jump, which of course is harder for him because of his fear of heights, on a job that makes him go to high places. Then Tim Shaw catches up with him, which means the Doctor now has two choices: jump to catch up to the two of them, or don't. And this is where things get serious, as the Doctor takes some steps back from the crane, runs, and then takes the leap. This is where I think 13 finally shines in the first episode, not through the Tim Shaw confrontation, not the sonic screwdriver preparation, but in the moment where she finally soars through the air to make it across to save Carl. The one moment, if all else fails, could have meant the end to everything, not just for her, her fam, or Carl, but for the end of the world. Now, of course, this could have ended badly. She could have fallen off the crane while stepping backwards, she could have veered off the crane while she was running towards the edge, or she could have just given up and not done it at all, because there's a high chance of risk as well as that high chance of reward. Let's just think about this. The Doctor in the past has done heights. I mean, all you have to mention is radio telescope, and I think people will get what you mean by the Doctor traversing heights. But in the case of post-regeneration stories, what is the tallest thing that the Doctor has traversed in those stories by that point? The closest would be the Victorian rooftops that the 12th Doctor traverses in Deep Breath. A normal feat by any point is because it's essentially going from a high-level bedroom to a roof, which isn't that far up in the difference in height. But two cranes, both of them in a higher height than a house, and with less security to a person traversing them than in a house roof, is certainly one of the more higher heights that the show would traverse. Which makes it all the more special that this is done in the Doctor's first episode instead of perhaps later on in the first series or near the end of their tenure. It really shows that Chris Chibnall had the right idea to use this as a set piece to really show what Jodie's Doctor meant to the audience from the off. To be wowed by this stunt instead of having to leave it later to have a similar but maybe not so special reaction because we're so used to her doing stunts. But also there's the leap part of the scene. The strange little leap, which again has been used by many jumps from spaceships, from creatures, and from explosions from before Jodie's era. But this isn't just a leap away from something or someone. It's that leap to that something or someone as she tries to make that leap towards Carl and Tim Shaw. That all makes a difference because it lets the Doctor into the danger rather than keeping them away from it. Oh, and by the way, before anybody asks, yes, Jodie did the jump all by herself due to the fact that she wanted no stunt doubles for the first episode. So everything stunt-worthy in this episode belongs to her and her alone, which makes this all the more great to see that the power of the scene is driven by the passion of the person behind it. I also think it's a great scene because it shows the true limits of the Doctor, especially in her new incarnation, which this scene does show by showing her shaping towards them by testing her to their limits, such as the instinct to do anything to save someone like Carl by taking the leap not only for herself, but for him to save him. And sure, she doesn't make it fully to the crane at first, but that's not the point of what she was trying to do. She was trying to do something to get to the left one to the right one, so that she can make it towards Carl. And you can only do that by trying your hardest, so that in the future, you know where you're going to save yourself next time. Also, as a side note, whoever got Sagan to compose that great piece he did, which is sadly not on the soundtrack, Give them a medal, because that piece itself is another great component to the scene. The tiny piece of when the Doctor reverses back for the crane, and the transition into the boom of the sound when the Doctor reaches the other crane, giving the viewer the musical suspense of if she's going to make it or not. And I suppose that's really what I wanted to say about this one brilliant scene. So yeah, I think I've said all that's worth on the scene alone. Oh, if you want to ask, Series 11 was my favourite series from this era. It Takes You Away, Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, Village of the Angels, and Eve of the Daleks were my favourites in each respective seasons. I want to give a big thanks to Shobogan Who for letting me take a part of this, and I want to give another big thanks to Jean-Luc Harry for actually helping me get into this. Please make sure to check out everybody else's one brilliant scene in the meantime. And this is Tom from the Whoniversals saying, be seeing you, my friends.
Doctor, whoever I'm about to be.